Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today we are going to taste two 100-point wines side by side, one from Bordeaux, one from Napa Valley, to see which one comes out on top. By the way, this video is sponsored by Lausanne, but more on them later. Originally, my idea was to create Napa versus Bordeaux videos, similarly as I have done with other winemaking regions, wine styles and grape varieties. After all, these are probably the two most iconic areas for sourcing Cabernet-based wines, known for their impressive quality, aging and investment potential. However, it was not as easy as I initially thought, because Bordeaux is a vast winemaking region offering wines of different quality levels, while Napa is much smaller and far more focused on Cabernet Sauvignon. It would have made more sense to compare Napa with some of the more specific appellations of Bordeaux, such as Pauillac or Margaux. But let's be honest, Napa versus Pauillac doesn't sound as catchy. So I started thinking on why we often compare Napa and Bordeaux. It's not just about the regions, it's about their best known, most iconic, and most expensive wines. These wines share the same audience, the same buyer, and the final consumer. That's why it made more sense to compare two legendary Cabernet-based wines from both regions. I started to look through scores and evaluations of these wines. While we might not always understand what 95 or 88 points mean for a given wine, we do recognize what 100 points mean: a perfect wine. Nothing to add and nothing to take away. A balanced, harmonious, and extraordinary wine. So I thought, why not take a supposedly perfect wine from Napa and supposedly perfect wine from Bordeaux and taste that. These wines are Dominus from Napa and Chateau from Bordeaux, more specifically Margaux. Both from the same vintage, 2015, and both received perfect score, 100 points from various critics. Dominus was awarded 100 points by none other than the OG Robert Parker's Wine Advocate, while Chateau received 100 points from James Suckling, amongst others, who even compared it to the legendary 1961 vintage of Chateau. Before we begin, I want to share a quick disclaimer. I do have some insights and possible criticisms to share with you about the particulars of wine scoring, wine competitions, and the 100-point system. However, this is not what this video is about. If you would like me to make another video on this topic or any other aspect on wine judging, please let me know in the comments. But today we are here to celebrate and open wines we don't get to enjoy every day. Certainly not me. However, unfortunately, such iconic wines are not always readily available in my market. That's why when the wine can't come to you, sometimes you have to go to the wine. I frequently travel to wine destinations with the idea of bringing back wines. But here's the thing, wine bottles are fragile. If you're flying, you'll want to get your precious bottles home safely without turning your luggage into a red-stained disaster. I used to wrap bottles in old socks and t-shirts, but now I've found a smarter solution: the Lausanne Elite Wine Suitcase. It allows you to transport up to 12 bottles or mix and match by removing foam inserts. It's lightweight, easy to maneuver, and designed to stay under 23 kilograms or 50 pounds, even when fully packed with 12 bottles. This hard-shell suitcase is made specifically to ensure your wine bottles make it home safely, hassle-free. The foam inserts might look snug, but they're designed to accommodate both wider and slimmer bottles, keeping everything secure. Plus, it includes a built-in lock for extra security. It's a game changer for any wine lover. I also managed to get a discount code for Lausanne Suitcase. You will find it in the description below, but now off to the tasting. I have chosen to start with Bordeaux. So, first wine, Margaux, Chateau 2015. Okay, as expected, deep in color. Are you slightly shy? Could that be? I mean, this wine is 9 years old and it is Cabernet Sauvignon. And actually, surprisingly and quite interestingly, this wine has quite high percentage of Merlot, more than 40%. And the Merlot is sourced from old vines. So that's something you might not always find in Margaux or the left bank in general. Please open up, dear friend. Okay, it starts to show some berries, some cranberries, black currant, some ripe strawberries. But there's also that kind of layer of floral characteristics like rose petal or potpourri. But there's also some really structured backbone of crushed stones, cedar wood, cigar box. But it is still really shy. Let's taste that wine. Wow. I mean, I will be honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of 2015 vintage in Bordeaux. It was quite hot and the wines were quite powerful and big. I much more prefer 2016 vintage, which is towards the elegant side. But here, if I would be tasting this wine in blind, I doubt that I would say that this wine is coming from a really hot and powerful vintage, because the acidity is so elevated and lively and bursting with fruit. And then you have that really chalky, finely grained tannin structure. It is not super ripe or opulent, but it is beautifully and masterfully done. There is a lot of power in it, but similarly, as I recently discussed with one of the iconic producers of Barolo, it seems like it is sleeping beauty. Like that wine requires some time to spend in the bottle. You can kind of feel the presence of greatness, but it is soundly asleep here. And that is another interesting factor here, because those warmer vintages tend to open up sooner in the bottle. They're more approachable in their youth. And this one plays hard to get in the glass. But we might come back to it. Let's taste the wine number 2, which is Dominus 2015 vintage. This is the very first time I'm tasting this wine. It's much more open on the nose right away. And the intensity of fruit, the purity, that kind of bursting fruit, that strawberry, cranberry. Oh, wow. It's like they're just on the bush, ready to be picked up. And if you leave it for a second longer, it will just burst with ripeness and all those juices. This is that kind of fruit we have here in the glass. So intense, much more open than the Chateau Palmer. But there's also some layered kind of vein with some earthiness, some Earl Grey notes. It tells you it comes from a warm climate. It kind of shows that really sweet, ultra ripe, almost jammy type of fruit, but not jammy in a way that it is kind of cloaking and heavy sugary, but just really ultra ripe fruit that has seen a lot of sun. Okay, now we start to see some of that toastiness, some cedar wood, some vanilla, but fruit is what dominates the nose here. Let's taste it. So what is interesting here, Christian Moueix, you can also find his name on the label here, is closely linked with Bordeaux. Not specifically with the part of Bordeaux that is known for its Cabernet Sauvignon, actually more with the right bank in Pomerol and Saint-Emilion, and he's also closely linked with Chateau Petrus. And I think I can feel that elegance, that lifted character that we often associate with Bordeaux. On the palate, this wine is really fresh, juicy, and it shows a lot of energy. But what was particularly interesting for me was the tannin. It was not that really sweet, ripe tannin, that kind of velvety tannin that you sometimes expect from Napa Cabernets. This was really chalky, really structured, and kind of giving that very important backbone to the wine. I don't always find that really polished, but also beautifully structured tannin in Napa Cabernets. And that was something that I really enjoyed here. Okay, I want to come back to Chateau Palmer. Let's taste that wine. Okay, it is slowly opening up. It's just sleeping. I just imagine my dog, you know, in the morning when he's sleeping and you kind of ask him to go outside and just opens one eye, and then after a while the second eye. And this is exactly the same as happening here. Yeah, it starts to show more floral characters. It kind of screams power and magnificence, but it is at the same time really fragile, if you know what I mean. I think this is absolutely stunning wine. I am familiar with Palmer wines though, and I will say this, it is a great example of what this estate can do. And Jane Anson, one of the Bordeaux experts, actually said that this wine deserves to have a first growth status. So it has been really consistent over the years. But the reason why I say that I am familiar with this wine is because I have tasted some amazing bottles from this estate, and this is yet a bit closed. And I'm sure this wine will open up with ages or even decades in the bottle, but at this very moment, tasting it right now, I can give this wine 98 or maybe 99 points. I don't think it is perfect wine yet, at least in my glass. Let's move to wine number 2, which is Dominus. I will also maybe retaste it a bit. I like the nose here very much. It is just so intense, but at the same time, really pure. I think because of that absolutely beautifully structured tannins, that chalky tannin structure that just adds an extra layer on the palate for this wine, extra depth if you will, I think it is nearly to perfect wine. And I wonder why it is so damn difficult for me to give this wine 100 points. It's like we always, wine critics and like whoever you want to talk, we always want to leave a small gap for improvement. So let's be honest, let's give this wine 100 points. I think it truly deserves it. And Palmer, you're just showing such a beautiful nose. And 99 points for Palmer. Guys, these are really, really expensive wines. And to be honest, I bought these wines myself, and I was just thinking about No Sediment and where No Sediment Wine Channel has brought me. And I would have never, ever in my life imagined spending such amount of money on a single bottle or 2 bottles of wine. So I want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in and watching my videos, because constantly thinking what kind of content I can create for you, what kind of content would be interesting for you and engaging for you. I am here. I am tasting these absolutely magnificent wines bought with my own money. So thank you very much for supporting me and being there for me. And I promise the next video will be more affordable for your sake and for my own. I briefly mentioned left Bordeaux bank and right Bordeaux bank, but if you really want to know what is the difference there, I made a video, Bordeaux left bank versus Bordeaux right bank.